contains spoilers for Friday's episode of Coronation Street, which airs at 8:30 p.m. on ITV1 or can be streamed now on ITVX. Summer Spellman, Harriet Bibby, has lashed out in Coronation Street amid her grief for late father figure Billy Mayhew, Daniel Brocklebank, who perished in the multi-vehicle pileup earlier this month. Billy was driving a minibus back to Weatherfield when it collided with a series of other vehicles, and it seemed like it was every man for himself. Nobody stopped to consider whether he could escape. When ex-boyfriend Todd Grimshaw, Gareth Pierce, realized that he was still stuck inside, he sent abusive partner Theo Silverton, James Cartwright, to rescue him. However, Theo used this as an opportunity to silence Billy and stop him from exposing his abhorrent behavior towards Todd. In the aftermath, police have concluded that Debbie Webster is responsible for the incident as a result of brother Carl, Jonathan Howard, dragging her lifeless body behind the wheel to frame her. Debbie seemed to be largely unbothered by what had happened. She accepted that she was the driver, ignored her family's concern, and pleaded guilty. However, it later transpired that she did this out of intense guilt, with it being revealed to viewers that she is actually Carl's mother, seemingly handing him over to her father, Bill, and stepmother, Elaine, to raise as their own in 1986. By entering your details, you are agreeing to our terms and conditions and privacy policy. You can unsubscribe at any time. In today's episode, Debbie began to put her affairs in order, well aware that she was likely to be sent down. After canceling her honeymoon and telling husband Ronnie Bailey that she was going to transfer the business accounts to her, he headed out and realized that the crash and Debbie's supposed involvement was the talk of the cobbles. Meanwhile, at the Undertaker's, Summer broke down upon witnessing Billy's body being delivered from the morgue. She was in complete and utter disbelief over his death, having previously told Todd that she wakes each morning and experiences the pain again. Just around the corner, Debbie had met up with Ronnie and was enjoying a laugh, unaware of the unfolding situation. Summer stormed over and accused her of murdering Billy, slapping her across the face. Ronnie tried to calm Debbie down, though she agreed with Summer that she was the one responsible. Who is Jody in Coronation Street? Identity and plot connection revealed in ITVX release. The hallowed cobbles of Coronation Street have borne witness to countless tragedies, but few have woven a web of guilt, sacrifice, and raw human fury as dense as the fallout from the horrific multi-vehicle pileup that claimed the life of beloved vicar Billy Mayhew. In a week of staggering revelations, what was presented as a simple case of a driver's error has metastasized into a psychological thriller, exposing a decades-old family lie, a calculating murderer, and the volcanic grief of a young woman who has lost her father figure. The catalyst? A single blistering slap from Summer Spellman, Harriet Bibby, that landed on the cheek of Debbie Webster, Sue Devaney, in Friday's emotionally devastating episode, a moment that didn't just sting the skin, but ripped the facade off the entire community. This isn't just a story about a car crash. It's a forensic examination of how grief curdles into rage, how guilt can masquerade as indifference, and how the sins of a mother, buried for nearly 4 decades, can erupt with catastrophic force in the present. With the stunning introduction of a new character, Jody, more on her seismic arrival later, the Platt family itself is poised on the brink of a new crisis. Strap in, for we are diving deep into the heart of Weatherfield's most complex tragedy in years. To understand the magnitude of Summer's rage, one must first fully comprehend the monstrous truth of Billy's final moments. The initial reports painted a picture of a tragic accident, Debbie Webster, distracted or impaired, causing a chain reaction collision. But the truth, as slowly unearthed by viewers, is a narrative of chilling premeditation and cowardice. Billy, Daniel Brocklebank, a beacon of kindness, was driving a minibus back to Weatherfield. When the crash happened, chaos ensued. In a damning indictment of human self-preservation, it was every man for himself. No one, in those initial panic-stricken moments, stopped to check if the vicar was trapped. It was his ex-boyfriend, the eternally complex Todd Grimshaw, Gareth Pierce, who realized Billy was still inside the wreckage. But in a fatal twist of irony, Todd sent his abusive partner, the manipulative Theo Silverton, James Cartwright, to perform the rescue. Theo, however, saw not a life to save, but a threat to silence. Billy knew the extent of Theo's psychological and physical abuse towards Todd. With the cover of chaos, Theo seized his opportunity. What should have been a rescue became a murder by inaction, or perhaps something more direct. He left Billy to perish, ensuring his dark secrets died with him. The police, piecing together the cold, hard evidence of vehicle positions and a seemingly coherent narrative, then fell into the trap set by the true puppet master, Carl Webster. Carl, Debbie's own brother, so everyone believed, dragged Debbie's unconscious body behind the wheel of the culpable vehicle. It was a frame-up of breathtaking coldness. But why? The motive remained murky until the episode that shattered the Webster family history. Debbie's reaction to her arrest was the first clue that there were abyssal depths to this story. She was placid, almost detached. She accepted the blame, ignored the frantic protests of her family, and pled guilty with a resignation that baffled her husband, Ronnie Bailey, and her brother, Kevin. It seemed like surrender, or perhaps shock. But the camera, in a masterful stroke of storytelling, didn't linger on Debbie's blank face in court. It took us back to 1986. A young Debbie, terrified and desperate, handed a baby boy to her father, Bill, and stepmother, Elaine. The instruction, loaded with a lifetime of pain: hand him as your own. That baby was Carl. Debbie isn't his sister. She is his mother. This revelation recontextualizes everything. Debbie's guilt is not for a crash she doesn't remember causing. It is a primordial, decades-old guilt. She abandoned her son. Now, that same son, a man twisted by God knows what childhood resentments and revelations, stands accused of a heinous crime. In her mind, this is her penance. Her incarceration is the price she must pay for her original sin. She is protecting her child, even if that child is a monster. When she told Ronnie, "I am responsible," she wasn't talking about the crash. She was accepting the karmic bill for a choice made a lifetime ago. In today's episode, we saw Debbie, with eerie calm, putting her affairs in order. Canceling her honeymoon, transferring business accounts to Ronnie. These are the actions of a woman walking stoically towards her own demise. Her brief laugh with Ronnie in the street wasn't callousness. It was a fleeting moment of normalcy, a last taste of sunlight before the prison doors clang shut. Meanwhile, in a world away from Debbie's complex resignation, Summer Spellman's grief remains raw, acute, and unbearable. Having lost her parents, and now the man who stepped into that void, Billy, who guided her through teenage pregnancy, diabetes struggles, and university aspirations, Summer is unmoored. Harriet Bibby's performance has been a masterclass in depicting the physicality of grief. As she told Todd earlier this week, she wakes up every morning and has to relive the news, the pain fresh as a new wound. The trigger for the inevitable explosion was brutally simple. At the Undertaker's, Summer witnessed Billy's body being delivered from the morgue. the finality of it, the corporeal reality of his death in a simple, grim transit, shattered whatever fragile composure she had left. The disbelief turned to pure, unadulterated agony. There was Debbie, sharing that laugh with Ronnie. The juxtaposition was incendiary. From Summer's perspective, here was the woman who pled guilty to causing the crash, the woman whose actions led to Billy being trapped in that metal tomb, laughing. It was an intolerable image. Grief, pity, and despair metamorphosed in an instant into white-hot fury. Summer stormed over. The accusation was direct, primal, and true in the only way that mattered to her heart. You murdered him. And then the slap. A sharp, shocking crack that silenced the street. It wasn't just a hit. It was the embodied voice of every mourner in Weatherfield, of Todd's silent guilt, of Paul's loss, of a community robbed of its moral compass. Ronnie tried to intervene, but Debbie's response was perhaps the most heartbreaking beat of all. She didn't deny it, she agreed. In accepting Summer's rage, she was once again shouldering the boundless guilt of her life. As this central tragedy plays out, ITVX has strategically released a new strand of narrative that is set to collide with the street's premier family, the Platts. Enter Jody, a character whose arrival is tied directly to the Platt lineage. Sources close to the production reveal that Jody is introduced as a figure from David Platt's past. Their connection is not a fleeting one. It is deeply personal and consequential. While exact details are being guarded, the strong implication is that Jody may be linked to David's often turbaceous romantic history, potentially from his time away from the street. Could she be an old flame? A wrong he never righted? Or, in true Coronation Street fashion, could she be the mother of a child David never knew existed? Her arrival, timed amidst the community's fragility post-crash, is no accident. The Platts, still navigating Gail's ever-present anxiety, Sarah's business woes, and David's own hard-won stability, are a pillar of the street. Throwing Jody into the mix, a human grenade from the past, threatens to destabilize that pillar precisely when the community needs cohesion. Her story promises to unravel another layer of secret and consequence, proving that in Weatherfield, the past is never truly buried. It just waits for the most inopportune moment to resurrect. Where does this leave us? On the brink of several seismic reckonings. Todd is no fool. His grief for Billy is laced with a growing suspicion. As his own escape from Theo's abuse continues, will he piece together that Theo had the means and motive to ensure Billy never made it out of that minibus? Theo's days of manipulation are numbered. His framing of his own mother is an act of unparalleled betrayal. But with Debbie in prison, can his arrogance hold? A single witness, a fragment of recovered CCTV, or a pang of conscience from someone who saw him at the crash site could bring his house of cards down. And when the truth emerges that Debbie is his mother, the psychological fallout will be nuclear. How long can Debbie maintain her silence? When she sees the toll it takes on Ronnie, on Kevin, and on a community that now reviles her, will her maternal guilt be enough? A desperate visit from Carl in prison could be the tipping point. This slap is a turning point for Summer. Has she released her fury, or has she unlocked a darker side of her grief? Will she seek justice beyond a slap, digging into the crash herself? And how will her relationship with Paul, who is battling his own terminal illness, evolve as they become two young people bonded by profound loss? Jodi's integration into the street and her explosive connection to David will provide a counterpoint to the Webster saga, reminding us that life, with all its messy, complicated past, forces itself onward. The pileup on the road was just the initial collision. The real wreckage is happening in the hearts and homes of Weatherfield. Debbie Webster, trapped in a prison of her own making long before any cell door locks. Summer Spellman, her innocent grief mutated into righteous violence. And Billy Mayhew, a good man whose death has become the catalyst for exposing rot that festered for a generation. In the end, Friday's episode was more than a dramatic confrontation. It was a thesis statement on Coronation Street's enduring power, a demonstration that beneath the quotidian gossip of the cafe and the pub, there pulses a raw, human drama of Shakespearean proportions, where the questions are never simple, the guilt is never singular, and the search for redemption often leads you further into the dark. Executive summary. The Wharton Bridge pileup is not an isolated incident, but the epicenter of a narrative event that will redefine multiple Weatherfield dynasties. This report analyzes the intersecting plots of Billy Mayhew's death, Debbie Webster's secret motherhood, the rise of Theo Silverton as a villain, and the incoming shockwave of Jodi for the Platts. We examine character psychology, historical parallels, thematic resonance, and predictive narrative trajectories. Billy's death is a masterstroke in tragic irony. The vicar, a man who lived by a creed of love thy neighbor, died in a scenario defined by its absence, every man for himself. His character arc, from addicted troublemaker to ordained man of faith, was a testament to redemption. His death, therefore, isn't just a plot point, it's a philosophical challenge to the street's moral fabric. Can a community that failed to save its moral compass now find justice in his name? His absence creates a vacuum of goodness that darker forces, Theo, Carl, are rushing to fill. Summer's journey is a poignant depiction of disenfranchised grief. Having lost both parents, her surrogate father Billy was her last tether of unconditional, guiding love. Her slap is not mere melodrama, it's a critical stage in Dr. Roberta Thames's model of grief, anger directed at others. A high achiever with type 1 diabetes and a history of trauma, Summer uses intellectualism, her studies, as a shield. Billy saw through that. Without him, that shield is shattered, revealing the raw, childlike pain beneath. Her confrontation with Debbie was an attempt to externalize the internal chaos, to find a tangible target for an intangible loss. Watch for a potential spiral neglect of her diabetes, abandonment of her studies, or a dangerous alliance. Could she seek out Todd to uncover the truth, putting her in Theo's crosshairs? Alternatively, she may channel her grief into a crusade for justice, becoming an unexpected investigative force. Todd's guilt is multifaceted. He grieves Billy, a man he loved deeply but could never fully reconcile with. More destructively, he carries the knowledge that he sent his abuser to save him. This makes him an unwitting accomplice. Todd's character has always thrived in moral gray areas, but this burden may be too great. Theo's heroic act of trying to save Billy has likely been weaponized. "I did what you asked, Todd, it's not my fault." This traps Todd further in the cycle of abuse, making exposure of Theo feel like an indictment of himself. His path to redemption lies in finding the courage to betray his captor to honor his late love. Debbie's 1988 backstory retcons Webster family history with devastating elegance. It explains her perennial outsider status, her driven ambition in business, compensating for lost motherhood, and her complicated, sometimes distant relationship with brother Kevin. Sue Devaney's performance key is in the eyes, a flat acceptance masking an ocean of ancient pain. The 1986 handover, imagine the social context. a young woman in 1980s Weatherfield, pregnant, with a father, Bill, likely offering a solution to avoid scandal. The decision to give up Carl would have been framed as for the best, seeding a lifetime of repressed trauma and giving Carl a foundational narrative of abandonment. His modern sacrifice, his guilty plea, is a suicidal act of atonement. He is choosing the ultimate bad mother label, a killer, to absolve herself of the original bad mother sin, abandonment. It's a tragic, flawed equation. Carl is the show's most nuanced villain in years. He is not a pantomime rogue, but a product of generational trauma. His frame-up of Debbie is not just about evading justice, it's a grotesque test. You gave me away once, now will you go to prison for me? Prove you're my mother. It's a warped demand for a sacrifice to retroactively validate his existence. His charm masks a profound, festering rage toward the entire Webster clan who lived the lie. His arrogance. He believes he has outsmarted everyone. He underestimates the bonds of the family he scorns, particularly the dogged persistence of Kevin and the quiet intelligence of Ronnie. Ronnie is the audience surrogate. He represents decency and truth in a maelstrom of lies. His investigation will be crucial. As an outsider not bound by Webster family mythos, he can see the anomalies. His confrontation with Carl, when it comes, will be a clash of pure morality versus calculated nihilism. Theo represents a very 21st century evil. He's not a brute, he's a manipulator. His abuse of Todd is psychological, isolating, and gaslighting. Murdering Billy was a logical escalation to maintain control. Methodology: he uses Todd's own traits, his intelligence, his cynicism, his past mistakes, against him. By killing Billy, he eliminated Todd's moral anchor and created a shared, terrible secret that further binds him to him. Narrative function: his storyline provides a crucial public service message about coercive control in gay relationships, a subject rarely dramatized with such nuance. His downfall must be satisfying, but also educative, showing the difficult path to freedom. Revealing Jodi's connection via ITVX builds hype and allows for a more novelistic backstory. Her link to David Platt is genius. David has the most dramatic backstory of any young adult on the street: rape, murder attempts, bereavement, psychosis. The unknown child. Jodi is the mother of a child conceived during David's bad boy era, pre or post Kylie's death. This would rock Gail to her core and create a sibling rival for Lily and Max. The wronged woman. From his days as a hustler or during a manic episode, David profoundly wronged Jodi. She's back for restitution, not money, but psychological reckoning. The bloodline reveal. A wilder theory: could Jodi be connected to the late Richard Hillman, a secret daughter? This would be a seismic, history-altering twist. Her arrival injects a new mystery directly into the street's most resilient family, ensuring the post-crash narrative isn't dominated by a single tone. It's classic Corrie, tragedy and sharp personal drama operating in parallel. Ronnie finds a discrepancy in the crash site photos, a witness statement placing Carl at Debbie's car. Summer's public accusation sparks gossip. Sally Metcalf, as moral arbiter, begins asking uncomfortable questions. Todd, haunted, lets slip a detail about Theo's actions to a confidant, perhaps George Shuttleworth. Jodi arrives, her eyes fixed on David, causing immediate tension with his wife, Shona. Ronnie confronts Carl in the bistro. A physical altercation leads to Carl spitting the truth. "Ask my mother about 1986. Kevin learns the truth. His world fractures. His brother is his nephew. His sister is a mother in mourning. Theo, sensing Todd slipping, becomes more violent, perhaps targeting Summer as a way to control Todd. Jodi's secret is revealed in a private, devastating scene with David and Gail. Todd, with evidence gathered by Summer or Ronnie, goes to the police. Theo's arrest is for murder, not just abuse. Todd's final line to him: for Billy. Cornered, Carl attempts to flee or take a hostage. In a final confrontation, Debbie must choose: protect the son she gave up or stop the monster he became. She chooses the latter, saving Kevin or Ronnie, and Carl is arrested. Mother and son share a final, silent look of mutual destruction. Charges are dropped, but she is broken. She and Ronnie may leave Weatherfield to heal, her relationship with Kevin forever altered but not destroyed. She visits Billy's grave, able to speak of memory without only feeling pain. She takes a leave from studies, but plans to return, perhaps in Billy's name. David's storyline with Jody becomes the A-plot, exploring fatherhood, past sins, and whether history must define you. It integrates fully into the Street's ecosystem.